Welcome, dear friends, to 21 Days with Paul and Stephen. Today is about the end of chapter 11 and opening of chapter 12. For those who are entering now, we are in this 21-day journey regarding the teachings in the book Paul and Stephen, psychographed by Chico Xavier through the author Emmanuel. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because many people after the elections in the United States were distraught, confused, desperate. And this book contains precisely the recipes for all of us to lead a life with firm steps and no hesitations on doing good, being always hopeful, joyful, and courageous too. So, hi, Adilson and Angelita. Here we are, friends. So we are in this beautiful transformation of soul. Soul finally found himself. It's not about converting to anything. Jesus does not want us to be converted and be Christians, labeling ourselves Christian. It doesn't serve a purpose. Labels are to no use. What is important is actually to shift our hearts to the good. So, Ananias, the persecuted man, meets Saul. Saul is blind and faithful, trusting that he's gonna know what to do next. Somebody knocks at the door, and it's Ananias. Ananias comes and shares with him that Jesus asked him to come and help him. He cannot believe himself that Ananias is that courageous and is that connected to Jesus. Yeah, it's what we call mediumship. Mediumship is not something new that began with Spiritism. We agree the name mediumship was coined by Kardec. You're right. Yeah, Kardec, as a wonderful educator, was very careful about words. He coined many terms starting with the word Spiritism and Spiritists. And if we want to know more about the reasons why, just read the book, the Spirit's book, the introduction of the Spirit's book. And here we have Ananias talking to Saul. And I'm reading directly from the paperback version of the book. And it says, Jesus has sent me here so that you may have the gift of sight once again. How many people in our lives enter to offer themselves as good instruments to give us our new sight once again? Yeah, it's opening the doors of our hearts and seeing clearly the needs of love in our lives. So here he is giving Saul an opportunity to see again. May the Lord, so in ardent tears streaming from Saul's eyes, he says, may the Lord forgive my sins and enlighten my purposes for a new life. Now, said Ananias tenderly, placing his hands on the sightless eyes. In the name of the Savior, I pray to God that you may see again. You see, there is a moment here that Emmanuel describes something quite interesting. Tenderly, he was placing his hands on the eyes of Saul. Tenderness can be so healing. When we caress our friends, our children, our spouses, ourselves, it can be truly healing. I'm not saying that that's where the healing came from, but just saying that even science shows to us that it can release caressing, can be releasing of endorphins, and people feel less pain. Endorphins are opioids that we build in our own system. Hi, Ana Luisa. Hi, Dulce. Big kiss, my friends. So here we are. If it pleases Jesus to make it so, says Saul penitently, I offer my eyes to his holy service forever and ever. This is interesting recipe for health. Recipe for health. How often we want to recover from this or that disease, this or that condition. But the question is, are we going to recover to keep doing the same old? Or are we going to recover to build anew? And that's what Saul realized. If I'm going to use my eyes, may I use my eyes for something that is beneficial to everybody? Are we using our bodies to the benefit of everyone? Or are we selfishly using only to the benefit of ourselves? And then we can harm ourselves, because we're supposed to channel God's love through us to the whole world. And Saul finally saw it. So you see, he's deeply transformed. Mind, perispirit, physical body. He is releasing himself from the shackles of his own limitations. He's becoming freer, open, possible to expand. And as if a powerful and invisible force were at play, something similar to scales fell from Saul's pain-filled eyelids as his sight began to return, drenched in light. Through the open window, he saw the clear sky of Damascus, experiencing indefinable bliss in that sea of brilliance. Like fragrance from the sun, the morning breeze bathed his brow, translating to his heart a blessing from God. Hi, Valeria. Hi, Felipe. So here we have. And Saul says, I can see. Now I can see. Glory to the Redeemer of my soul, he exclaimed, extending his arms in an ecstasy of gratitude and love. Hi, Hercules. How often we pray for the healing, and when healing happens, we just treat it just like anything else. We need to be careful. Because, many people who were healed by Jesus, later they fell sick again. Why? Jesus didn't do a good job? No. As he said, your faith healed you. And it's up to us. Thank you, Hercules. Love the flower. Thank you. So Ananias could not contain himself either. Faced with such extraordinary proofs of Jesus' mercy, the old disciple of the gospel embraced the young men of Tarsus, weeping with gratitude to God for the grace they had received. Trembling with joy, he lifted him with his generous arms, upholding his surprised and jubilant soul. Friends, 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 friends. We have here deep lessons for healing mediumship. Many people, they get engaged into the Spiritist practice through mediumistic activities, passes giving, and later when people start healing and going through these obsessions. Hi, Rita Di Cassia, thank you for being here too. And we don't have the humility that is needed to keep ourselves connected to the good spirits. Ananias was deeply humble. He understood that miracle, quote unquote, because we know miracles don't exist. Miracles are simply things we can't explain ourselves. But for us, we understand. Jesus brought the healing through Ananias to Saul. Saul was open. His faith healed him. Ananias was the bridge. He could see it clearly that he was not the one producing anything. In the Medium's book, Kardec reveals to us that there are two main elements that are needed for good spirits to be connected to us. Humility and selflessness. Humility and selflessness. Thank you, Rita, for being with us. So, thank you. Thank you, God, that you can give us an opportunity to be your co-creators. But we're co-creators, we're not creators. I know mediums who tell me, but if it weren't for me, this wouldn't happen. And we would reply, according to the spirits, if it weren't for God, we wouldn't be here. If it weren't for us, somebody else would do the job. Kardec himself knew that he was advised by the good spirits that he was important. But if he didn't fulfill his task, somebody else would. So when we think we're so important that nobody else can do what we're doing, we're going to learn in a hard way. Ananias already knew that the gift of seeing again was granted by Jesus, not by him. First question of the day, the quiz of the day. Always 3 quizzes. First quiz, what is the level of our humility? From 0 to 10. 0 being poor and 10 being excellent. Where are we regarding humility? What is humility? Is knowing that we need God. In Spiritism, we understand that we, without God, are nothing. When we feel that, humility takes place. Nothing that we do, everything we do, everything we say, everything is like clay. Somebody gives me Play-Doh, I make a shape, but I didn't create a Play-Doh. I'm creating the shapes. But in God's case, God gives us the Play-Doh, gives us the strength, gives us the oxygen, gives us everything. Even the thinking. In the book Mechanisms of Mediumship, André Louis says to us that our thought is immersed in God's thoughts. Because it comes from God. It's like clay, Play-Doh. Nothing of us is truly, truly from us. Humility is to know that everything comes from God. And we are here learning to be good children of God, good servants, good apprentices of the supreme intelligence of the universe, first cause of all things. Where are we regarding humility? 0 to 10. Let's keep the number and double check in a few days. If not every day, but in a few days. Let us score. Where are we regarding humility? Because Ananias was doing excellent. Thank you, Ananias, for your example. Thank you. Right? So, he says, Brother Saul, this is a great day for us. Let us embrace each other in the sacrosanct memory of the Master who has made us brothers in his immense love. Friends, this is a lesson for us. Those who were separated yesterday by different ideas will one day get united by the love of God. And one day we're going to embrace everyone in our lives whom we feel some form of difference. And one day we shall celebrate just like Ananias, celebrating that we're on the same page and that we're brothers and sisters in God's immense love. How does that feel? Good? Wonderful? Marvelous. We love it. So there they are, and they start talking about what's going to happen next. And he says he belongs to Christ now. He's committed to it. Yes. And he's eager to learn from Ananias. We're eager to learn. After all, remember, Emmanuel says, you're right. He says, we're here to learn and to help, to learn and to help, to learn and to help. if we're not open to learn. Are we ready to learn today? What are we going to learn? To learn, we need to observe. We need to be very good observants. So we need to be open every day. God, I'm open to learn and also to help and to serve. So they're talking about everything. And in 3 days' time, and still under the weight of those impressions, Saul received the good news. He's talking about Ananias talking of his connection with Jesus. Saul was absorbing the words, spellbound like someone who had discovered a new world. The reference to the persecutions rekindled his bitter remorse. Action and reaction. That's where expiation begins. That's where it begins. We start suffering from the moment we are aware we made a mistake. But the beauty of it all is that the next step is reparation. So there is hope. Hope. At the end of the line, hope. In compensation, his soul was replete with sincere vows promising a new life. So Ananias smiled about Saul's openness, completely happy. Saul then asked him to tell him about Stephen and later about Abigail. He was a loving man. He was a loving man. Look at this, Emmanuel's descriptions. The old disciple of the way was moved. Saul wept upon hearing those loving recollections about Abigail. Yes, he knew that Abigail could not be that. Friends, how often are we hearing Emmanuel describing the feminine in Saul? He wept. He wept. He was not like, oh, okay, that's beautiful. He really felt it in the core of his heart and cried and felt the emotion that Saul 2,000 years ago. That's very important because many people, they're so chauvinistic that they think that when men cry, they're gay. And forgive me, but that's really prejudice because it's not about sexual orientation. It's about being who we are, human beings. If we are really humans, we cry because it's in our physiology. The glands are made for men and women, and we better use them or our eyes are going to dry out. Many people have problems with dry eyes, and I wonder why. I wonder why. They don't want to moisten it in the tears of joy, the tears of true emotion, and the body speaks. So, Ananias says enthusiastically so, where can I get a copy of the sacred gospel? Where? The old disciple smiled kindly. Before anything else, do not call me master. The master is and will always be Christ. That's a lesson for us. We're no masters. We're just apprentices. We others, by extension of divine mercy, are disciples, brothers and sisters in need and in work of redemption. Lessons for us. As for acquiring the gospel, only at the Church of the Way in Jerusalem could we obtain a copy of Levi's works. Well, the beauty of it all is that later he get a hold of it all and he wants to learn more and he understands why the word good news. For many of us spiritists, we may not be aware why. So let's read this passage here as a reminder. And as if already enlightened by the missionary spirit that would underscore his least actions for the rest of his life, he said attentively, we must find a way to spread the new revelation as widely as possible. Jesus is our help from heaven to delay his messages to prolong humanity's despair. Besides, the word gospel means good news. Okay? Got it? We got it. Gospel means good news, gospel. It's crucial for us to spread his news, that has come from the highest plane of life. Some people have asked us, why does this book give us guidance after the elections in the United States and for everything else in life? Because of the reasons Soul just described to us. The good news of Jesus console our hearts and calm down the waters of despair. And let us ask ourselves, are we encouraging people around? Or are we just keeping them in the light of desperation? Think that the world's going to be worse now after the election. Do you think it's going to be worse? We should feel otherwise. It's not a matter of agreeing or disagreeing with whomever is there in power temporarily. It's about work. Now we have more room to work. We have more, I would say kindly, excuses to work harder. You know, because people need it. So we're like, now we have more reasons to serve. So the world is already getting better. It's already getting better. Love it, love it, love it. So he says, now, you know, I want to go and talk to my people. And he says to Ananias, as for me, I have nothing to fear. If Jesus restored light to my eyes, he will also illumine my ways. I want to tell Zadok, his best friend, about the event that has given new direction to my destiny. And the occasion could not be more opportune because I know he is still lodging some renowned Levites who recently arrived from Cyprus. Ananias, smiling, says, may the Master bless your good intentions. Saul felt happy. Ananias' presence comforted him greatly. They had lunch together like old and loyal friends. Right afterward, the generous envoy of Christ went home, leaving the former rabbi to a meticulous job of copying the texts. Beautiful. He's committed. He's no longer a hypocrite, saying one thing and doing another. Sometimes we go to Spiritist centers, say, I love Spiritism, I want to help, and I go home and I start making other plans. And I don't customize my life around it. And people say, oh, Vanessa, you know, but this is just for you and for this and that and the other. I said, I don't think so. I think Jesus came to change our lives completely. Not to be preachers, but to live the life. Our lives are supposed to be different. The way we eat, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we talk, everything shall be transformed. But conscientious transformation, it doesn't happen instinctively. Remember, let us remember together. André Lewis, in the book Evolution in Two Worlds, reveals to us the mechanisms for new learning. He says it's all about effort and repetition. Effort and repetition. Some people come to Spiritist centers thinking, from now on my life's going to be transformed. And they think that transformation is going to come from the outside in. And they forget that it takes effort inside out. Repetition. Effort and repetition. Effort and repetition. It takes mind over matter. It takes consciousness over instinctiveness. No longer being instinct. It's about consciousness. Awareness. It's about effort, repetition. Effort, repetition. And then our lives change. We're going to learn today as we merge from chapter 11 to 12 that Saul was a good apprentice because he had discipline. And let's not forget that that's the direction of learning. Effort and repetition, meaning from discipline to spontaneity. André Lewis reveals to us, as much as Emmanuel, that in life we only acquire new habits if we push ourselves to the new. It doesn't happen automatically. And that's why many parents are on the wrong direction. because our children will only acquire habits if we discipline them. Discipline doesn't mean anything negative. It means we're going to make effort, constant effort, and repeat. Effort, repetition, discipline. And then it becomes spontaneous, second nature, as we say. In life, that's how it works. Throughout the book Evolution into Worlds, André Luiz repeats to us that from the first cell to the human beings, everything depends on discipline. Spontaneity is a byproduct of discipline and not the reverse. Educators and parents think, oh, children will spontaneously gravitate to education. No, they won't. That's not the nature of ourselves. Everything in nature needs effort, repetition in order to become spontaneous. When children spontaneously gravitate to things, they are already in tune with it. They probably learned in previous lives. But we need to make effort. That's the law of work. Oftentimes we run away from the effort in life. But one of the laws of the universe is the law of work. We need to be prepared to be laborious every day. Every day. And not be sad. Because there is joy in serving. There is joy in working. There's joy in discipline. There's joy in making efforts, repeating. And one day we see a beautiful music being played out. And we wonder, where is it coming from? Like the book, Jesus in the Home. It feels good, right? It feels great to know the laws of life. When we hear that music, like a parable told by Jesus, it's written in the book, Jesus in the Home. We hear the music. The musician who uses to play hears the music. And he's asking, where is this coming from? He's walking around his property, he doesn't find it. When he goes to the servant's home, he sneak peeks on the window and he sees his servant playing more beautiful than he did. And he understands that the servant was daily inspired by the master and practicing every day. One day he mastered it. That's us. We are practicing every day. And it doesn't sound that good. But one day, Jesus is going to notice that we have learned it. And like Saul, now in sync, playing the music of the heart, he goes with courage, seeing his friend Zadok. And he says, Zadok, I saw Jesus resurrected. And the other made a great effort to contain an outburst of laughter. Sarcasm is a byproduct of ignorance, of inferiority, say the spirits in the book, Spirits Book. And André Luiz repeats in his books the same knowledge. And here we're going to see that sarcasm, irony, is a byproduct of ignorance. Zadok is about to laugh. Is it a joke? Your sentimental character used to be so much against mysticism, he objected mockingly. Is it possible that it has surrendered to such grounds? Do you actually believe in such visions? He goes on, and Saul looked at his friend, displaying immense concern in his anxious eyes. These accusations were the forecast of the welcome awaiting him amongst his old brothers in arms and religious thoughts. No, he said, feeling each word deeply, I cannot accept your arguments. I repeat, I saw Jesus of Nazareth, and I must proclaim that in him I acknowledge the Messiah promised by our most eminent prophets. And you see how interesting it is, my friends? The Jewish prophets, they announced that the Messiah was going to come, and they described precisely what was going to happen. To date, they don't get it. The problem is, do we get it? We think we do. We think we accept Jesus. But do we accept Jesus the name? Or do we accept Jesus as our guide and model? That's the second quiz of the day. Do we really accept Jesus as our Messiah, as our promised consoler, as our guide and model, the one that is our Lord, changing our lives daily? Or do we just say the name and we're going to repeat the mistakes of the past, creating temples of stone and hierarchy and these ties of the church of the past, like the Jewish temples? Because some spiritists are behaving like this, worrying and more concerned about the administration, the business, the money that needs to come into the center to pay the bills. Friends, if your spiritist center is in financial problem, don't think that telling the people to focus on the financial fundraising, you're going to be aligned, because it's the wrong direction. Never ever the financial part of it shall be the focus of our attention. So Vanessa, what do we do? Keep it real. Yes. Love. Focus on the people who need. And Andre Luiz says in the book Disobsession, we need to keep the focus on the service. If the center cannot sustain itself, decrease the size of the center. We did this at the SSB years ago. It was the year 2011. We had 2 suites. There was a financial crisis in the economy of the United States. Members could not collaborate as much. After much effort and struggling, etc., and a long story, we decided to shrink, to downsize to 1 suite. It's better to have 1 suite and focus on the work than 2 suites and focus on the money and not focusing on the service. That's how it is. If that's what we need to do, we do it. We need, as Valeria is saying, we need to keep the focus on the service. We need to keep the focus on the service. Hi, Nina. Thank you for joining us. So, Zadok listens to Saul and he's astonished. He can't believe it. He could not hide how shocked he was. He got to know that Saul was going to change his life. And the conversation goes on. And Zadok says to Saul, then so be it. You answer for the consequences. The best friend is no longer friend. Because he wasn't friend, right? At the moment, both grasped the immensity of the dividing line that separated them. Thank you, Adilson. Keep focus on the service and the people who need. Exactly. Exactly, friends. Let's keep it simple. We are not creating churches. We are not creating organizations. We are not focusing on organizations. Let's remember what Chico taught us. The cause is above the house. The cause is above the house. Whether the house is a center, a federation, whatever it is. Nothing can be greater than the cause. And the cause is that Christ comes back again to let us lead a simple life. Simple life. Spiritists cannot have financial goals for spiritist organizations. We can sustain it, but when it becomes the focus, we're in trouble. We can't. Like so, we need to learn to change it all. Serene and resolute, he avoided approaching the place where the distinguished visitors were seated and aimed for the large platform where a new podium had been set up. He wanted to talk to his friends, and I tell you, he started talking to the people of his church, the temple. And they're like, men of my old faith, it's no use to try to hide the truth. I'm neither treasonous nor ill. We are facing a new era in the light of which all our religious practices are meaningless. And a rain of insults suddenly cut his words short. Coward, blasphemer, dog of the way, away with the traitor of Moses. And that's how it is in our lives. Today, maybe many people like you because you are just echoing what they want to hear. The day that you change, everybody who embraced you don't love you anymore. That's life. That's human nature. If they did this with Jesus, they will repeat it with Ananias, they repeat it with Saul, and they will do it with us. And that's the nature of things. The problem is, are we doing this with somebody else? Are we doing the same? Somebody in our lives who used to be very good and loving, and now they go through their own difficulties, and we are throwing stones at them, if not directly in their face, but on the behind the scenes, we are bad-mouthing them, saying, oh, they're obsessed, they're crazy. Is that charity? Is that charity? Everyone goes through tough phases. Big deal. The thing is, we want to be charitable. And that's charity when people need the most. If somebody used to give their hand to us, and now they're in need of our hand, let's give us our hand to them. Instead of putting them down and telling everybody that now, they are in trouble. That's not funny at all. I'm saying this because I see a lot of it around us. And it's very concerning, especially for spiritists, when they go that route. Saul followed the scene with profound interest. When the prayer had finished, the priest said with irritable emphasis, "We regret this episode, but let us avoid turmoil, which will get us nowhere. Until yesterday, Saul of Tarsus honored our ranks as a paradigm of triumph. Today, his words are for us a twig of thorns. As for us, let us finish the synagogue speeches and retire in peace as faithful followers of the law." So, thank you, my friend Nina, for the blessings, but let us ask this question to us. Who are the people in our lives who used to be on the same page, and now something is happening to them? They're in different pages, they have issues, they have problems. What are we doing to give them a hand? I know friends who helped many people open spiritist centers. Now they are facing difficulties. And those who are seeing it, instead of being charitable and reaching out, they are being sarcastic and saying, now this person is lost in this and the other. That is less than not being charitable. That's cruelty. That's cruelty. We often wonder, how do we treat obsession in our circle of Spiritism? Because it's inevitable that sooner or later we're going to be facing challenges in our lives. And how do we treat one another, my friends, when we face obsession in the circle of Spiritism, in our Spiritist movement, with people around us, even in our family or circle of friends? They go through obsession, and before we actually reach out to them, we're just like the Pharisees, hypocrites. Just like them saying to Saul, Yesterday he was with us, now they're crazy. Now dementia in Paul, he's crazy. And that's how we treat. This is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. So we need to be fully aware how much of a hypocrite we still have inside of us. Because we see people going through difficulties, and instead of reaching out, we are pushing them away as if they had leper. Avoiding them, talking bad about them, as if we are invulnerable. You know, the spirits often remind us, be careful, you could be the next one. We could be the next one. We're not invulnerable. None of us are invulnerable. All of us may be well at the mercy of an obsession if we don't watch out. So, the hypocrites were there, and Paul was distraught. He was distraught. Ananias heard about what happened, and Saul said to Ananias, disturbed, I can see myself surrounded by enormous difficulties. And that's when we realize that the teachings are for us. We start a journey and we're like, oh my God, I thought it was going to be so easy being a spiritist. But I can see it's going to be difficult. I feel that I must spread the new doctrine to our fellow beings. Jesus has filled my heart with unexpected strength, but human brutality is enough to frighten the strongest. Hi, Daniel Castellani. And he says, now a beautiful teaching from Ananias. Yes, explained the old man patiently. The master has given you the job of sower. Beautiful. You are full of goodwill. But what does a man do upon receiving such responsibilities? Question for us. We sowers, we don't make the seed, we spread them out. We have goodwill. What do we do with such responsibilities? Before anything else, try to gather the seeds into your private coffers so that your efforts may be productive. What does that mean? And that's exactly the question that Saul made. What do you mean by that? You and I are learning from Ananias. He's saying, you're the sower of Christ. You have goodwill, you want to spread it out, but you have responsibility. You need to keep in the private coffers so it may be productive. What does it mean? I mean that a man living a pure and upright life without the errors of his own good intentions is always ready to plant goodness and justice along the route he takes. But the one who has already made mistakes, or who is harboring some guilt, needs to experience his own suffering before he can teach others. What? Those who are entirely pure or who have not suffered along the way will never be understood by those who simply listen to their words. Their lives contradict their teachings. Besides, everything that is of God demands great peace and deep understanding. In your case, you must think of Jesus' lesson as he dwelt for 30 years among us, preparing himself to endure a presence for only 3. Jesus the Master prepared himself 30 years to be with us for 3 years. And we go to the center and say, I'm ready, I want to join, I want to do this, I want to that. And he's saying, if we don't lead a pure life, which we don't, I don't, my life. Guilt, yes. Suffering, welcome. Suffering is going to cleanse and cleanse, and then we're going to be able to spread the news. To receive a task from heaven, David lived with nature, herding his flocks. To prepare the way for the Savior, John the Baptist meditated for a long time in the harsh deserts of Judea. So for those who come to Spiritist centers and say, I love it, I want to work, sit down, meditate. Sit down, meditate and study. Sit down, meditate and study, and wait. Wait. We can't simply go and say, I'm going to start spreading the news. Adilson is saying something here. Let's hear him. Vanessa, lately I am concerned if we're not prioritizing too much and getting distance from Spiritism itself. One is transitory, the other is eternal. How much this movement is in parallel with the precepts of Christ. Very true, my friend. There is one difference. Spiritism is unshakable. Spiritist movement is made of us. Right? So, we really need to reunite. Adilson is right. And Paul and Stephen can be the unifying element. It has lots of recipes here, lessons to make calibration. Let's recalibrate ourselves one by one. If each one of us recalibrate, the Spiritist movement will recalibrate. Let's not worry about what others are doing, because as Mother Teresa said, it's between God and them, God and us. But Adilson is right. If we focus on ourselves, if we are realigned, recalibrated, it's going to be a domino effect. Each and every one will. So Adilson is reminding us, let us all focus on what? Joseph says, Mentor Joseph always says, Vanessa, the secret is what Jesus said. Focus on those who are in need, those who suffer. If we focus on those who suffer, we will not miss the boat. We'll miss the boat when we focus on organizations, bureaucracy, administration, hierarchy, and that's when we're going to miss the boat again, because we already missed the boat many reincarnations. This time, we need to focus on whom? Who suffers? Us and others. What do we do? Focus on reaching out. Focus on reaching out. Jesus never formed any organization. Thank God. Chico Xavier never participated as a member of any organization, but we need Spiritist centers. Spiritist centers, they are hospitals. They are not religious churches. They have a religious feature, but they are not like a hierarchical church. But we need Spiritist centers because they are schools, they are hospitals for the soul. And Chico Xavier focused on that. He never focused on repeating the old of the past. Never, never. And Ananias says something to us that I think it's striking. When you, soul, have suffered more, you will have improved your understanding of people and things. Only pain teaches us to be human. When people enter the most dangerous period of their lives after early childhood and before the night of old age, when their lives are abounding with energy, God sends them children so that in raising them, their hearts will become compassionate. True. From what you have told me, it is possible you're not to become a father, but you will have children of Calvary far and wide. Didn't you see Simon Peter in Jerusalem surrounded by unfortunate beings? Of course, you'll find a larger home on earth where you'll be called to practice fraternity, love, and forgiveness. It is necessary to die to the world so that Christ may live in us. Hi, Vinicius. Hi, Steve. Reminder, Steve Shepard is here with us. We want to share with you. The Spirit's book is already in audio format. John DeRosa and Steve Shepard made the voices. Steve Shepard kindly made the voice of the spirits, while our John DeRosa made the voice of Kardec. Go to KardecRadio.com, listen to it, or go to iTunes. We have the whole book there for you. Beautiful, and much gratitude to these friends. We'll forever be grateful for the 3 years of non-stop work. They worked on it for 3 non-stop years. Friends, the lesson today is about suffering. Is about how suffering permeates our hearts. Be compassionate. If we are spiritists in this world of suffering, and we don't have suffering people around us or with us, then we are not doing. That's the thermometer. So let's put a thermometer today. Am I serving? How do I know? Do I know people who are suffering? Have they come and asked for help? Or am I just, now we have so much WhatsApp groups everywhere, and people creating WhatsApp for everything. And we ask why. It's important. But to share what? The illusions of the world, or to share the good news? Like our friend Adilson, every morning he records a page of the book, Our Daily Bread, shares with us. That makes our day. Thank you very much, Adilson. Focus on the service. Forgive me for exposing you, but that's an example. But if we live our daily lives and we don't have suffering around us, it means we're hypocrites. It means we believe in Jesus, but we're not living our lives focused on the practice, which is to reach out to others who are suffering more than us. The thermometer is thermometer of the waters of the heart. How much suffering are we encountering every day? Not in us only, but in others. We're not gravitating to suffering, but it's like, Band-Aid or the first aid kit. We bring it to people and say, here it is, it is, it is, it is. When we go to spiritist events, we need to look at each and every person, feeling that each and every person has a story, has a drama. How can we reach out to them? It's not about being butterflies in spiritist events, because that's what we're seeing, people going to events and, I participate in this event, so what? What difference did it make? Because we watched this talk or that talk and we talked to this person, that part. It's not entertainment. It's about consolation. It's about joy, we agree. But it's not about the entertainment. And we need to think, how much are we using the venues of these events to serve people who are suffering? So Mentor Joseph said in the symposium, we shared with Sarah Korngold and the representatives of the Spiritist Federation, we needed to open stations of service in parallel to these events. Passes, fraternal assistance, and answer questions to people directly one-on-one like Jesus used to do. He talked to the public, but he also reached out to people one-on-one. I remember, I'm not going to say names, but many years ago at the Spirit Side of Virginia, a speaker came from Brazil. And then one person from Iran who became a spiritist in our group, she was just diagnosed with cancer and wanted to ask the speaker questions. So I was there translating. And I said, can you please, it was kind of the fraternal assistance, fraternal counseling moment after the talk. And I remember the person answered the questions, but then at the end when we got home, the speaker came to me and said, look, this time I answered this personal question. That next time, I'm not going to do it again because I'm not a psychologist. Vanessa, never do this again. I didn't come here to do counseling. I was shocked. It's not about doing counseling. What are we, hypocrites now? We give talks and we don't care about people suffering? That's shocking. So we go to spiritist events, we give talks and we don't open ourselves to hear people's issues and problems and share with them the bread of life that we have, customize it. So let us open stations of service in parallel to our events. Fraternal counseling, have prepared people there, and passes and etc. Thank you, Shane, for being there. Hi, Vinicius, thank you, and Marilda too. So, when you have suffered more, you have improved your understanding of people and things. Only pain teaches us to be human. If we are not too human, we have two choices. Become human voluntarily, or life will teach us how to be human through suffering. It's not happy, but it's inevitable. The chapter ends as he realizes he needs to do his inner journey. He's gonna find his friend and mentor. Who is he? Gamaliel. In Palmyra. Palmyra. But the beauty of it all, how does he do the journey? He made sure of living on foot as to begin his new life with austerity, remember effort, discipline, that would be of utmost use to him later. He would no longer travel as a doctor of the law surrounded by servants, but as disciple of Jesus committed to his plan. That is why he considered it preferable to travel as a Bedouin, so as to learn to always count on his own strength. Are we counting on our own strength? Nina is asking us how to reach out when someone declares their pain. Well, if they declare their pain, it's easier because they are opening. The first thing, if we're with them, say a prayer together. And remember, the good spirits, the guardian angels of theirs and ours are there, ready to help us. So when we pray, we open ourselves to be vessels of the guardian angels who know what to do next, what to say to them. We don't know, but the guardian angels know. The protecting spirits know. So they are with us, they open up, we say a prayer, and we feel that the good spirits are guiding us. We don't need to be ostensible mediums to be open to receive the inspiration from the good spirits. Okay, Nina? Thank you for the question. Under the fronds of a solitary date palm, the Damascus convert took advantage of the silence for deep meditation. We need to meditate. And the chapter 12 begins like this. From the roads, the desert, he's entering the dry lands of what he built. This far, dry lands of the heart. We can't expect an oasis, but God's going to provide friends who are ahead of us. Gamaliel, Aquila, and the wife. They are ahead. They have an oasis. Through the oasis of more experienced friends, we're going to start wearing out the dry lands of our hearts, becoming stronger to endure the other moment, which is about struggles and humiliations. Chapter 12 is about this journey to the dry land of our hearts. In spite of being accustomed to the ongoing spectacle of foreigners coming to the city, given its privileged status in the desert, the passers-by in Palmyra were deeply interested as they observed the entry of that Bedouin, followed by a humble servant leading a camel panting from fatigue. Of course, they recognized the Jewish profile in the characteristic traits of his face and in the serene energy transpiring in his eyes. Saul is already changed. Saul in turn walked with an air of indifference, as if he had been familiar with the scenery for a long time. He knew that Gamaliel was one of the city's most well-known and well-off businessmen, and thus he had no problems receiving information from a compatriot who pointed out his residence. So he goes and is seeking for his mentor. We're going to finish this chapter today with this reflection. Once we find out that the dry land of our hearts need moisture, it needs the water of the Christ. The people ahead of us, remember, again and again in these chapters, it's been almost 12 chapters. The educator, Emmanuel, is showing to us that we don't grow strong alone. We always have teachers ahead of us. Hi, Edivanda. Adriano is here with us. Thank you. So, we always had ahead of us teachers. Teachers. Okay? We have people who have more experience. Whether our parents, whether mentors. So we need to ask ourselves. We need to ask ourselves. Can we recognize the more experienced people ahead of us? Because if our ego blinds ourselves and we resist to it, we're going to struggle and struggle and struggle to finally realize. Gamaliel was ahead of Saul, no doubt about it. There was a moment he questioned. His ego was superior. Now he's back to track. He recognized Gamaliel is ahead. He's not perfect, but he's more experienced in the lessons that Saul is in need of learning. The people who teach us, they are not perfect. Not even our guardian angels. But they are ahead of us in the lessons we need to learn. So we better be humble, learn from them, so we get to the other level. If we struggle, we're going to suffer, and oftentimes unnecessarily. As the Gospel according to Spiritism says, chapter 5, the present causes of suffering, oftentimes majority of the sufferings in this life is a byproduct of our creations in this life. Our creation in this life. Thank you, Dulce. That's an idea of Mentor Joseph. We can talk more about this, but it's very simple as you can imagine. Friends, how do you feel now? How do we feel at this moment? Hopeful? Enjoying this ride? Let's not forget that the current times are of great opportunities of serving. Serving everyone, serving first in thoughts, then in feelings, and if needed, words and actions. Being available to people in our lives is the most important way of serving. If people know they can count on us whenever needed, we're doing our part. Let us meditate on this and travel through the journey of our dry lands with Saul, trying to meet the mentor who God placed in our lives, so we can put ourselves back to track, get stronger to keep serving with firm steps and loving hearts. Okay? Until tomorrow, when we continue this journey with Paul and Stephen. A big hug and a kiss, lots of hope to all of us.